I recently filmed a video on how to take the dash light dimmer switch off these old Mercedes instrument clusters and rebuild it. And in the course of doing that video, I mentioned some other problems you might run into while working on the engine instrument cluster. That's the engine instrument cluster that you see here. And I've been kind of playing around with these for the last couple of days, and I've actually taken a few apart. So I think I can show you something that I wasn't able to show you in that previous video that might be a help to you if you're troubleshooting some problems on your instrument cluster. They could be problems with the dash lights not working and other lights, other warning lights not coming on when they should or coming on all the time. It could be a flickering fuel gauge problem. And of course you could have a leaking oil pressure gauge, but they're all related right here to this, what's called the engine instrument cluster, which has the fuel gauge, the temperature gauge, and the oil pressure gauge. Let's take a closer look at what I've come up with, and I think I can share with you some tips that you could possibly use when you're troubleshooting your own problems on your own instrument cluster. Let's start by talking how this whole engine instrument cluster is made up. You can see this is a circuit board. If you look closely, you can see the embedded wiring going around the board that lights up lights and various functions. And on the back, you see the main plug, which powers the entire instrument cluster. But it's fairly easy to take these apart. There's two screws that I've already removed here, and then you take these there's two small nuts that you can see. You just take those nuts off, and then you can push out, and that removes the instrument mechanism. You can see here the two units for the fuel tank sender and the engine temperature. Sometimes these will go faulty, and you can actually take these apart and replace this. You want to, of course, look for any loose wires or things that might be broken, burn spots. I've seen, particularly when looking at these circuit boards, I've actually seen burn spots in some of these wire routing areas. So you want to look at this very closely. The oil pressure gauge, of course, is a mechanical oil pressure gauge. It looks a little bit like a watch mechanism. And the problem with these is they're prone to leak. They're prone to leak out of the chamber. Hot oil enters this and pressurizes this bimetallic chamber, and it spreads it, and when it does, it moves the needle like that. So they tend to leak. The solder joints will give way, and you'll start getting oil. Oil will show up on the bottom of your dash, and when this is extreme, it will leak on your feet. Okay, so just so you know, these can be changed out independent of the entire cluster too. And you can see how these boards look. You can see on the back side here, there's the two contact pins for the dash dimmer potentiometer there. And then, of course, all these little warning lights just twist in and out right onto the circuit board there. And there's the wiring connections that are routed to those. So if you have your cluster out, I would, and you're having problems, you may have a problem with this circuit board, okay? It may not be completing ground properly. That's a real concern. You may not be making some connection. So don't just assume if you're having problems with either of those gauges, or you're having problems with your dash lights or any of your warning lights. Don't assume that it's the lights themselves, or don't assume that it's just these gauges. It might be this right here. So take a close look. Sometimes you'll see some warning signs. If not, if you're absolutely frustrated trying to find out what is wrong with some of the electrical problems in your instrument cluster, think about replacing the circuit board right here. I do have these on my website available, just the board themselves, and also if you've got a leaky gauge, I have these gauges available with special tool and instructions on how to change these yourself. So I hope you found that helpful. And if you're having problems with your engine instruments, I think we can help.